A frozen self-checkout scanner at Walmart was the first domino to fall. What followed was a nightmare of false accusations, legal threats, and a fight for justice that would expose a shocking corporate practice. Lesle Nurse hummed along to the music, absent-mindedly scanning her groceries at the self-checkout. It was a Tuesday, unremarkable in every way. Tuesday, the day that her life took a dark turn. Tuesdays would never feel routine again. She was a single mother, juggling work and kids, always careful with her money, always honest. Today, that honesty would be questioned, her life upended, all because of a faulty machine and a corporation's relentless pursuit of profit, even at the expense of innocent people. She didn't know it yet, but she was about to enter a battle that would pit her, an ordinary citizen, against a retail behemoth. The scanner beeped erratically, flashing a red error message. Item not recognized. Lesle frowned, pressing the assistance button, but the screen froze completely. A small line was forming behind her, a mix of impatience and silent judgment already settling. "Just a minute," she mumbled, feeling a blush creep up her neck. She tried again, but the machine remained unresponsive. Then he appeared, a stern-faced manager, his name tag reading Mr. Thompson, approached with an air of predetermined accusation. "Ma'am, step aside, please," he said, his voice flat, devoid of any empathy. "I need to see your receipt." Lesle, flustered, gestured at the frozen screen. The machine froze. "I was trying to—" Thompson cut her off, his voice rising slightly. "We have you on camera, ma'am. Security footage. Don't try to make excuses. We have a zero-tolerance policy." Lesle's heart began to pound. "But I didn't do anything," she protested, her voice shaking. "It's the machine." Two security guards, large and imposing, flanked Thompson. They didn't speak, but their presence was a clear threat. Thompson motioned towards a door at the back of the store. "We need to take you to the security office. Please cooperate." The room was small, windowless, and sterile. A single flickering fluorescent light hummed overhead. Lesle sat on a hard plastic chair, her hands trembling. She kept replaying the events in her mind, trying to understand how a simple grocery trip had escalated into this nightmare. "It's a mistake," she thought. "They'll realize it's a mistake." But the minutes ticked by, and the hope that had been a small, flickering flame slowly began to dwindle. She felt profoundly alone. She was just a regular person, and suddenly she felt powerless. The cold steel of the handcuffs bit into her wrists, a sharp, metallic sting that mirrored the shock and disbelief coursing through her. As she was led out of the Walmart, past the rows of checkout lanes and the curious, judgmental stares of other shoppers, Lesle felt a wave of nausea wash over her. She'd never been in trouble with the law, not even a parking ticket. This was wrong. The ride to the police station was a blur. The harsh glare of the streetlights, the muffled sounds of the police radio, the feeling of utter helplessness, it was all surreal. At the station, she was fingerprinted, photographed, and processed like a common criminal. The word shoplifting echoed in her mind, a label she couldn't comprehend, a stain on her character she desperately wanted to erase. The phone call to her sister, Sarah, was the hardest. Explaining the situation, hearing the shock and concern in Sarah's voice, made it all too real. "I'll be right there," Sarah promised, her voice tight with worry. Lesle had to arrange for someone to pick up her kids from school. The logistics of her life, suddenly thrown into chaos, were overwhelming. The bail was set, a significant sum for her, adding another layer of stress. She missed a shift at work, knowing that every missed hour meant less money for bills. The fear, the shame, the sheer injustice of it all. It was a heavy weight pressing down on her. A week later, the charges were dropped. The prosecutor, reviewing the evidence, or lack thereof, realized the case was flimsy at best. Lesle felt a surge of relief, a brief respite from the suffocating anxiety. But the damage was done. The arrest record remained, a shadow lurking in the background. She still felt the sting of the accusation, the lingering suspicion in the eyes of some. Then came the letters. Plain white envelopes, innocuous at first glance. Inside, however, were demands for payment, couched in dense legal jargon. The letters came from a law firm in Florida representing Walmart. They demanded $200 as civil recovery for the alleged theft. Heretofore, pursuant to civil demand, the phrases were intimidating, designed to confuse and coerce. The amount, while seemingly small, was a significant sum for Lesle, and the principle was infuriating. Sarah, ever the resourceful one, started researching the law firm online. What she found was disturbing. This firm was known as a settlement mill, specializing in sending these demand letters to people accused of shoplifting, regardless of guilt or innocence. They relied on fear and intimidation to extract payments, knowing that many people would rather pay than risk a lawsuit. Further digging revealed that this practice was widespread, allegedly generating hundreds of millions of dollars for retailers like Walmart. Lesle's initial relief morphed into burning anger. This wasn't just about her. It was about a system designed to exploit vulnerable people. It was a shakedown, a legal form of extortion. She wouldn't be bullied. She wouldn't pay. She would fight. Lesle spent days calling lawyers, her hope dwindling with each rejection. It's just $200, most of them said, their voices weary and dismissive. Pay it and move on. It's not worth the fight. The legal fees alone would be far more than the settlement amount. It was a classic David and Goliath scenario, and most lawyers didn't want to take on Goliath. And she found Vince. He was younger than the other lawyers she'd spoken to, with a fire in his eyes that matched her own. He listened patiently to her story, his expression hardening with each detail. "This is wrong," he said, his voice firm. "They're using the law to prey on people. We can fight this." Vince explained the legal options. They could sue Walmart for malicious prosecution, false imprisonment, and defamation. He outlined the risks, a long, drawn-out legal battle, the potential for significant legal fees, and the emotional toll it would take. But he also explained the potential rewards: clearing Lesle's name, holding Walmart accountable, and sending a message that this kind of behavior wouldn't be tolerated. Lesle hesitated. It was a daunting prospect. She was a single mother, working hard to make ends meet. Could she really afford to take on a corporate giant? But the thought of giving in, of letting Walmart get away with this, fueled her determination. She thought of her children, of the example she wanted to set. She would fight, not just for herself, but for everyone who had been victimized by this predatory system. "Let's do it," she said, her voice trembling but resolute. The discovery phase was a grueling exercise in frustration. Walmart's legal team, a phalanx of well-paid lawyers, seemed determined to obstruct at every turn. They delayed responding to requests for documents, filed endless motions, and generally made the process as difficult as possible. Lesle felt like she was drowning in paperwork, overwhelmed by the legal complexities. Vince, however, remained undeterred. He meticulously gathered evidence, subpoenaed records, and prepared for trial. He interviewed Lesle repeatedly, helping her to articulate her story clearly and concisely. They found other individuals who had received similar demand letters from Walmart, building a pattern of abuse. The trial itself was a stark contrast. Walmart's lead counsel, Ms. Harrington, was a picture of corporate power, impeccably dressed, with a sharp, incisive demeanor. She paced before the jury, her voice dripping with condescension. "Ms. Nurse," she said, her eyes narrowed, "are you seriously suggesting that Walmart, a company that serves millions of customers every day, deliberately and maliciously framed you for stealing a few dollars worth of groceries? A company dedicated to serving its community?" Lesle, seated at the plaintiff's table, felt a knot of anxiety in her stomach. But when she took the stand, she spoke calmly and truthfully. She described the faulty scanner, the manager's accusations, the humiliation of the arrest, and the lingering impact on her life. She spoke of the fear, the shame, and the anger she felt. Ms. Harrington's cross-examination was relentless. She tried to paint Lesle as a liar, a thief, someone trying to make a quick buck. But Lesle held her ground, her voice unwavering. She answered every question honestly, her integrity shining through. Crucially, No one from Walmart ever testified. No manager, no security guard, no one who could corroborate the initial accusation. The security footage, which Walmart had initially claimed to have, was never produced. Their case rested solely on the initial, unsubstantiated claim. Vince's closing argument was a powerful indictment of Walmart's tactics. He spoke of the imbalance of power, of the corporation's willingness to exploit vulnerable people for profit. He reminded the jury of Lesle's courage, her determination to fight for justice. He urged them to send a message that this kind of behavior would not be tolerated. This isn't just about $200, he said. It's about holding a corporation accountable for its actions. It's about justice. The jury deliberation was agonizing. Hours stretched into what felt like days. Lesle sat with Sarah in the waiting area, her emotions a turbulent mix of hope, fear, and exhaustion. She replayed the trial in her mind, wondering if she had done enough, if the jury would believe her. Finally, the bailiff summoned them back to the courtroom. The foreperson, a middle-aged woman with a kind face, stood to read the verdict. We, the jury, find in favor of the plaintiff, Lesle Nurse, and award damages in the amount of $2.1 million. A collective gasp filled the courtroom. Lesle felt her knees buckle, tears welling up in her eyes. Sarah squeezed her hand, her own eyes filled with tears of joy and relief. It was over. She had won. The vindication was overwhelming. Walmart's legal team sat in stunned silence. Ms. Harrington's face was a mask of disbelief. They had underestimated Lesle Nurse. They had underestimated the power of one person to stand up to corporate greed. Walmart had been called to answer for the accusation and had failed spectacularly. Walmart declined to issue a public statement. There were whispers of a possible appeal, but nothing materialized. The victory was Lesle's. Lesle looked back on her ordeal with a mixture of emotions. The pain and humiliation were still there, but they were overshadowed by a sense of profound accomplishment. She had faced a giant and won. She had cleared her name, and she had exposed a predatory system. Her story, she hoped, would inspire others to stand up for their rights, to fight for justice, even when the odds seemed insurmountable. The power, she realized, was not with the corporations, but with the people who dare to challenge them. It was a lesson she would never forget, a testament to the enduring strength of the human spirit.